The news took Hollywood and the fans by complete surprise. Nicole Kidman, known for her grace and professionalism, has officially filed for divorce from her husband, the well-loved country music star Keith Urban. For years, the two were admired as one of Hollywood's strongest and most stable couples, which is why this revelation has left so many shocked and heartbroken. For the public, their marriage was not just another celebrity relationship. It was a symbol of commitment and enduring love. Nicole and Keith's bond was often seen as a rare example in the entertainment world, where relationships usually fade quickly under the spotlight. But now, with Nicole's decision to end the marriage, everyone is left wondering, were there hidden cracks in their relationship all along? To the fans, this is not simply the story of a celebrity breakup. It feels like the end of a journey that many had watched closely and believed in. Their love story had always appeared genuine, filled with moments that inspired people to believe that true love could survive even in the most demanding industries. Now, with headlines confirming the divorce, people are looking back at those moments when their love seemed unshakable. And at the same time, they are left with an emotional question. What truly went wrong behind the scenes that led to the end of such a cherished marriage? Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's love story began like something out of a movie. They first crossed paths in the early 2000s at an event where both were being honored for their work. At that time, Nicole had already established herself as one of Hollywood's most talented actresses, while Keith was quickly rising as a respected voice in country music. From the outside, they looked like two people from completely different worlds, but destiny had its own plan. According to those who witnessed their first meeting, there was an instant spark between them. Nicole later admitted in interviews that she felt drawn to Keith's humility and kindness, qualities that stood out in an industry often filled with arrogance. For Keith, Nicole's warmth and sincerity were unforgettable. He once mentioned how he couldn't stop thinking about her after that very first conversation. Their connection grew stronger in the months that followed. Away from the cameras and flashing lights, they would spend quiet evenings getting to know each other, sharing stories about their past struggles and dreams for the future. Both had gone through their own personal hardships before finding each other, which made their bond even deeper. In 2006, just a year after their romance became public, Nicole and Keith tied the knot in a beautiful ceremony in Sydney, Australia. It was a wedding that felt like a fairy tale, not just because of the glamour, but because of the genuine love that radiated between them. Fans around the world were captivated by their union, calling them the perfect example of love that was real, pure, and built on trust. For many years, Nicole and Keith continued to be admired as a power couple. They supported each other's careers, appeared on red carpets hand in hand, and seemed to share an unshakable bond. To outsiders, it looked like nothing could ever come between them. But as with many great love stories, what the public saw was only part of the picture. Behind the smiles and the fairy tale moments, small cracks were beginning to appear, cracks that would later grow into something far more serious. For years, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban seemed inseparable. Their appearances together were always filled with warmth, smiles, gentle touches, and supportive words. But as time went on, fans began to notice subtle changes that raised quiet questions. These weren't loud or dramatic issues, but rather small details that only the most observant people picked up on. One of the earliest signs came during red carpet events. In the past, the couple would stand close together, laughing and sharing private jokes, but slowly, a distance began to appear. Nicole would often walk ahead while Keith lingered behind, or they would pose for pictures without holding hands like they used to. At first, fans brushed it off, thinking it was nothing more than exhaustion from their busy schedules. But for those who paid closer attention, it felt like something was shifting. Another moment that raised eyebrows was when Nicole started attending certain events alone. Whether it was a film premiere or charity gala, she would show up without Keith by her side. While she always looked graceful and confident, people couldn't help but notice his absence. Rumors began to circulate in the media, questions about whether the couple was struggling or if their careers were pulling them apart. Still, Nicole and Keith remained silent, never addressing the speculation. Friends close to the couple would later hint that arguments had become more frequent behind closed doors. These weren't explosive fights, but rather disagreements that lingered, slowly building tension. Nicole, deeply invested in her acting career, often had to spend months on film sets far from home. Keith, meanwhile, was on the road touring, performing to sold-out crowds, but coming back to an empty house. The love between them was still there, but the rhythm of their lives was no longer in sync. At the time, no one imagined these small signs would lead to something as final as divorce. To the public, Nicole and Keith were still Hollywood's golden couple. Yet, for those who looked carefully, the early signs of trouble were quietly revealing themselves, like shadows creeping into what once seemed like a perfect love story. One of the biggest challenges Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban faced was the simple reality of their careers. Both of them were at the top of their fields, admired worldwide for their talent and hard work. But with success came a price, and for them, that price was time. Time they could never fully give to each other. Keith's career as a country singer kept him constantly on the move. His tours often stretched across continents, demanding months away from home. From late-night concerts to endless travel, the lifestyle of a touring musician left little room for stability. Even when he wasn't performing, there were rehearsals, recordings, and promotional events. Fans saw the glamorous side, the lights, the applause, but few understood the exhaustion and the distance that came with it. Nicole's career, on the other hand, was equally demanding. As one of Hollywood's most respected actresses, she was constantly filming in different parts of the world. Sometimes she would spend months on set in Europe or Australia, leaving her family behind. While her dedication earned her critical acclaim, it also meant long stretches of separation from Keith. At first, they managed to balance it. They would fly across the world just to spend a few days together, celebrating birthdays or anniversaries whenever their schedules allowed. But as the years passed, the strain grew heavier. No matter how hard they tried, it seemed like their careers kept pulling them in opposite directions. Friends of the couple revealed that both Nicole and Keith often expressed how much they missed each other, but the demands of their professions made it nearly impossible to bridge the gap. The physical distance slowly began to turn into emotional distance. Phone calls and video chats weren't enough to replace the comfort of being together in the same room. This constant back and forth eventually became one of the most painful aspects of their marriage. What the world saw as two successful stars living their dreams was, in reality, a story of two people struggling to hold on to each other while their careers kept pulling them. Behind the polished smiles and glamorous appearances, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban were quietly battling struggles that most people never saw. To the outside world, they looked like a couple who had it all: fame, success, love, and a beautiful family. But within the privacy of their home, life wasn't always as perfect as it seemed. For Keith, the constant pressure of touring and living in the public eye took its toll. Long nights on the road, the weight of meeting expectations, and the loneliness of hotel rooms often left him drained. Even though he poured his emotions into his music, the stress was real. There were moments when he felt disconnected, not just from Nicole, but from the sense of stability he craved. Those close to him said that despite his success, he sometimes carried a quiet sadness, one he tried to mask with his charm and smile. Nicole, too, had her own battles. While she thrived in her acting career, she often struggled with the loneliness that came with it. Being away from her husband for months at a time left her feeling isolated. She was surrounded by lights, cameras, and people, but inside she sometimes felt the emptiness of not having Keith by her side. As a woman who valued family deeply, this absence weighed heavily on her heart. Over time, these private struggles started to shape the dynamics of their marriage. Little disagreements turned into arguments that never fully healed. They had different lifestyles. Nicole preferred quiet evenings and family time, while Keith's career revolved around late nights and constant travel. These differences, once easy to overlook, began to feel like walls slowly rising between them. Those closest to the couple later shared that the love between them never disappeared, but the balance did. They were both trying to give their best to their work, to their fans, and to each other, but the effort was exhausting. What the public couldn't see was that behind the glamour was a pair of people fighting hard to save what they had, even as the cracks in their marriage continued to grow. Every marriage has its difficult seasons, but for Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, there eventually came a moment that neither of them could ignore, a breaking point that changed everything. It didn't happen overnight. It was the result of years of distance, unspoken frustration, and the pressure of their separate lives. But one particular incident made it clear that their struggles could no longer be hidden. According to close sources, an argument before an important award ceremony revealed just how far apart the couple had grown. What should have been a night of celebration turned into a night of silence. Nicole was seen arriving at the event without her wedding ring, and while she smiled for the cameras, the sadness in her eyes didn't go unnoticed. Not long after, paparazzi photos began surfacing that showed the couple spending more and more time apart. Nicole was spotted at social gatherings alone, while Keith was photographed leaving concerts looking weary and distant. Their once warm body language had faded, replaced with an unfamiliar coldness that fans could feel, even through a camera lens. Friends who had been close to both of them revealed that the arguments were no longer about small differences. They had grown into deeper disagreements about life, priorities, and their future together. What one wanted, the other could no longer give. The love between them was still present, but it was tangled in disappointment and exhaustion. For Nicole, the breaking point was realizing that the life they were living was no longer the one she had dreamed of when she married Keith. For Keith, it was the painful acknowledgement that no matter how much he tried, their worlds were drifting further apart. The silence between them became louder than any words they could say. And so, the fairy tale that once inspired millions began to unravel. That breaking point wasn't just about one fight or one night. It was the moment they both understood that their marriage was no longer the safe haven it used to be. When the news finally broke that Nicole Kidman had filed for divorce from Keith Urban, it sent shockwaves across the entertainment world. For years, rumors had swirled, but fans always believed their love was strong enough to survive. Now, with the filing confirmed, it was no longer speculation, it was reality. The court documents were straightforward, citing irreconcilable differences, a phrase often used in Hollywood divorces, but one that carried a heavy weight in this case. For a couple who had once seemed so deeply connected, the words felt both shocking and heartbreaking. Nicole was the first to release a statement through her representatives. It was brief, measured, and dignified, very much in her style. She expressed her deep respect for Keith and the years they had shared, emphasizing that the decision had not been made lightly. She spoke about the importance of protecting their family's privacy during this difficult time, and though her words were calm, they carried the unspoken pain of someone who had fought hard to hold on, but finally had to let go. For days, Keith remained silent. Fans and media outlets speculated endlessly about what he might say. Finally, he released his own short statement. His message was heartfelt yet restrained. He thanked everyone for their support and asked for compassion and understanding as he and Nicole navigated this new chapter of their lives. He didn't go into detail, but those who knew him said his silence carried more emotion than any words could. The official filing marked the end of their marriage, but it also marked the beginning of public mourning for a love story that millions had admired. Headlines filled newspapers and entertainment shows, with phrases like Hollywood's golden couple no more and the end of a fairy tale. What was once considered unbreakable had now come to a quiet, painful close. The reaction to Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's divorce was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours of the announcement, social media platforms were flooded with messages from fans who could hardly believe the news. Many expressed heartbreak, writing that Nicole and Keith had been the couple who gave them hope that love could last in Hollywood. Some even admitted that they had looked up to their marriage as an example of how fame and commitment could coexist. On fan forums, people began revisiting old photos and interviews, searching for the clues they might have missed. Clips from red carpet appearances were suddenly being analyzed in a new light. Moments that once seemed insignificant were now seen as signs that trouble had been building for a long time. One fan wrote, "I can't believe it. Now those distant smiles in their last interviews make sense." The entertainment industry, too, responded with shock. Fellow actors, musicians, and industry insiders shared their thoughts, many sending public messages of support. Colleagues described Nicole and Keith as kind, grounded,